Hey everybody, welcome back to another Time Card broadcast. I just wanted to give you a few thoughts on some things that were going on. There was a really powerful video that came out in the wake of the president, of course, doing something else dumb and releasing a video that showed a very racist AI video depicting the Obamas as apes, a gorilla and a chimpanzee to be exact. I'm gonna play this video right now, and we're just gonna listen to it. I'll have a little bit to say, but I think that there's something here that we should all kind of pick up on. So here we go.
John in New Mexico, Republican.
Hello, is that me?
That's you.
Oh, my word. I am a registered Republican. My dad was the president of American Pipeliners Association, so I came by it rather naturally. Voted for the president, supported him, but I really want to apologize. I mean, I'm looking at this awful picture of the Obamas. What an embarrassment to our country. All this man does is tell lies. He is not worthy of the presidency. He takes bribes blatantly, and now he's being a racist blatantly. They were supposed to deport the dangerous criminals. They were not supposed to go after small children, storm schools, bring terror upon, the little kids and the women and children, not just the immigrants in the school. All the children are scared. This is not a decent man. This is not an honest man. He openly takes bribes. He's pathetic as a president, and I just want to apologize to everybody in the country for supporting this rotten man.
John, did you vote for him in all three elections?
I did. I was sucked into the stupidity of creating jobs, and there are no more jobs in New Mexico. Things are worse than they were before. You cannot find a primary care physician. Our governor just passed some laws to try to help.
All right, so we're gonna cut it there. What a call! What an important call! And I don't just say that's important because I, as a leftist, am someone who's looking for people to come to the right side and come to their senses. I'm not trying to get an intellectual dunk on this guy. I think that this is important for a couple of reasons. Why have people voted for Donald Trump? Obviously, there are people who love the messaging, they love the brand. They'll in the wake of all this ICE stuff, you'll hear people just rattle off, "Oh, I voted for this," and I don't think they know exactly what they really voted for. But in this case, he touches on something that I think is really important because I know people in my life that have been kind of on the fence about politics. They're not like super big on following it, but one thing that everyone does follow, one thing that everybody knows is how it feels to exist in this economy right now. And when I hear that call from John in New Mexico, and he says that he regrets voting for Trump, I mean, obviously, one thing is good, brother. I'm so glad to have you here. Let's talk about how we can make things better. I'm hit by a second wave of, well, how were you duped? Like, it's been the same message. It's been pretty clear to people like me. But there's something that we're missing, and that's that the Democratic Party hasn't given anyone a thing to vote for. Since President Obama's first run, the first one I was able to vote for back in 2008, that was the last election, at least a general election, that I felt like I was voting for something. Because whether he lived up to those promises or not, and I don't believe he did, he still had President Obama still had a platform that gave people a reason to come out and vote for something. What have we had since? We've had Hillary Clinton, whose main message was, I'm a woman and I'm not the Republicans. I'm not Donald Trump. Obviously, that didn't work in 2016. We know why that didn't work out. People were tired of the way things were going. A lot of people decided that the neoliberal, the current Democratic triangulation strategy of let's not actually push for strong economic left policies, things like universal health care, universal child care, shorter work weeks, better working conditions, better labor rights, things that pretty much anyone in a blue-collar job can for sure get down on. They weren't pushing that. They were going for what I like to call a diet Republican strategy. The idea is that when Republicans come into power, they shift the Overton window to the right. And when Democrats come into power, they don't do anything to claw back that rightward shift. In fact, they just tend to legitimize Republican positions. A great example is that during the 2024 election, when Kamala Harris was running, the big stink was immigration. You had Republicans setting up the idea that there's so many criminal illegals here, they're committing a bunch of crimes, they're stealing our jobs, they're also stealing our welfare, they're simultaneously lazy and super motivated to take all of our stuff. And when Democrats got on the main stage, they go, well, yeah, no, there is a big problem with immigration. We need to do it smart. In fact, I remember Kamala Harris saying that she would be tougher on the border than Republicans. What does this do to someone who is tuning in during an election to decide who to vote for, but isn't a political junkie like me that kind of stays plugged in all the time? That tells them that, oh, well, there seems to be an immigration issue. Let's go ahead and go with the people that have always moved the hardest on immigration, and that's the right wing. I want to tie this back to John in New Mexico, though. John is the kind of person who realizes three times voting for Trump in that it's not getting him what he's looking for. He's not actually getting that prosperity. They're just getting a lot of like optics wins, I guess. If you're a person on the right, the optics of arresting a whole lot of illegal immigrants, the optics of badgering Congress people during hearings as Pam Bondi did, the optics of being a chill, not surprised, super cool guy. That stuff plays well. What we need is a strong economic platform that gives people a reason to vote for something. And with that, I want to move into something else. Hasan Piker here, someone that I follow, at least in the commentariat sphere, had something interesting to say on the I've Had It podcast. So let's take a listen. This is a clip. This is an edited clip. It doesn't give him his full context. I'll go into that afterwards. But here's the clip that's going viral.
Who do you vote for, J.D. Vance or Gavin Newsom?
Well, I'd have to vote for Gavin Newsom,
Me
of course,
too.
100%.
I wouldn't blink. What about you, Hasan?
I'd probably vote third party.
You would?
Oh yeah. I mean, at that point, it doesn't even matter. Like, because my policy on this is the same as like my refusal to endorse Kamala Harris. The reason why I did not endorse Kamala Harris was because she did things that were not only unproductive but also unconscionable. And I still stand on that. I still talk about it all the time because people constantly bring it up. They're like, you didn't sufficiently like promote Kamala Harris. You're the reason why she lost. And I'm like, I am incapable. There is no singular force in this country that is capable of making or breaking an election. And if that was real, then it is the most idiotic thing not to listen to my demands. But everybody knows that that's not real, right? Mm-hmm. If I had this singular force to be able to make Kamala Harris the president, then Kamala Harris should be coming to me every day and being like, let me do a collab with you, please.
Totally.
Right? That's not the case, of course. And they know it. That's why they didn't do it. But the campaigns are always responsible for whether or not they are able to win the crowds, win the population over, and combat against the couch. Not necessarily even against the Republican Party, but usually you're fighting against the couch, people who just don't go out and vote.
Hasan's right. He's right. He is correct. People, anyone to the left of Bill Clinton will split hairs here and tell you that we have to do a harm reduction vote. We have to go for the lesser evil here. But remember, if you were around then, that during the 2024 campaign, Kamala Harris said there would be no daylight between her and Joe Biden. That's not something to vote for. If people are not happy with things as they are, even if Joe Biden did have a couple of great policies, but then no marketing about it and not anywhere near the campaign promises that he had, people don't feel the need to vote for that party. Now, I don't know why I have to keep explaining this to people. There's this like peasant brain mentality of, oh, well, you see, we know the stakes, so we know that we have to choose between the Republicans and the Democrats. I think that misses the point. That's kind of like saying a product is owed customers, right? If a company makes a certain type of shirt and then they start complaining that no one wants to buy it, well, why is no one buying it? They're probably buying it because they don't want it. Why aren't they voting for the Democrats? Because the Democrats haven't done anything. They haven't done anything to meaningfully claw back the rightward shift that Republicans do every time they get into power. They just end up legitimizing it. This is unacceptable. I know people, good friends of mine, who are probably watching this video, and shout out to you, who voted for Donald Trump this last time after voting Democrat for so long. And after voting Democrat for so long, they saw no changes. They saw nothing getting better. They saw things continue to be expensive. They saw all of these problems not improve. And if the problems don't improve, you're more likely to try something new, right? Because the old saying that's not entirely accurate, but is fun to say, doing the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity. It's not the definition of insanity, but I think the sentiment holds true that if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results, you're not going to get them. And it's not a good strategy. So what do we need? What do we need? The clip about Hasan here was in relation to a question posed about voting in 2028 between, of all people, current Vice President J.D. Vance and current California Governor Gavin Newsom. Now, Gavin Newsom is making news because he's one of the only public figures that at least can read the room and think, oh, I have to show that I'm standing up to the Trump regime. I have to show that I'm a fighter, because that's, especially with the ICE invasion here in Minneapolis and everything that's going on, that's kind of what people are clamoring for, as a fighter, someone to tell them that, hey, we've got a plan. We're going to do these things. We're going to go after actual enemies. We're going to go for progress. We're going to do things to materially make your lives better. But the Democrats aren't doing that. And until they do that, we're going to end up in the same position. I personally think it's a different form of madness to pre-swear loyalty to someone 2 years out from an election when no one's even made an official announcement yet. Like, this is what the primary process is for. And I know local politics can be really, really hard to follow up on, especially if you're working a full-time job, you've got a family to take care of. Not as many people have the free time like I have to just absorb this information and stay connected. But the primary process is where we select the candidate that will then get voted on in the general. So that's the first step. There's no reason to swear loyalty to another corporate Democrat that is almost certainly going to behave just like the other Democrats we've had, especially since and including President Obama. California has a rough reputation across the country, especially in places that aren't California, and even sometimes in places that are California. So I think people who are getting upset about this are really latching on to some idea that it is already 2028 and we do have to pick our people now. We don't. We've got a long time to go. I mean, not long in the grand scheme of things, but from where we're sitting right now in the very middle of February until 2028 when we actually vote. I mean, the primary process will probably kick off in 2027. We've got time. There's no reason to nail ourselves down to candidates, and especially nail ourselves down to candidates that are not going to be very popular. I wouldn't be surprised if Gavin Newsom doesn't even win the Democratic primary. He's going to have a lot of money and stuff behind him, but I'm going to be shocked if he does win. I want to tie this back to something locally too. Here in Minnesota, we got a governor's race happening this year. That's nuts. We've had our current governor, Tim Walz, drop out for a myriad of reasons, but mainly in lieu of the fraud scandals that were going around that were being publicized like they weren't being handled, which is untrue. They literally were being handled. That's how anyone knew about them, is because they were being prosecuted. Insane stuff. But in the wake of Governor Walz dropping out, we've started to see our first couple of Democratic candidates, and the main one right now is Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar. I'm just going to go out on a limb here and say something that might be unpopular. That's kind of the same boat. I think Amy Klobuchar is a little bit better than Gavin Newsom as far as like actually caring about people, but she's still very much a center-right Democrat. Do I think she'd be better than as a Minnesota governor than, I don't know, the My Pillow guy who announced he's running, and Lisa DeMuth, the insane speaker of the Republican-led House for the time being? Yeah, sure. But the point that Hasan was making in this clip is there's no reason to nail ourselves down. In the hypothetical setup, it's already too late. You're already at the point when you've got Gavin Newsom and J.D. Vance, and both of those options fucking suck. However, we should demand more from our politicians. Remember that the party has to earn your vote. Now, that doesn't mean you should give a bunch of unreasonable demands. You should be principled and moral in what you want, but you should hold fast to those and push your politicians to give you at least some of what you're looking for. Make your politicians come to you. Man, we've got a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of work to do. And something that I want to try to inspire you, the viewer, and your friends and whoever else you share this with is now's the time to get involved, to be active, to get to know your local politicians. If you live in a caucus state, look up those. They're a little bit different than a primary necessarily where you just go and drop a vote. Caucuses they can be a little complicated and a little bit off-putting to people that have never been part of the process, but they're not so bad. What I'm saying is we've got time until our next elections happen. We got to get it right. This might be one of the last chances for strong left economic positions to take root in this country. This might be one of the last chances we have to keep. I mean, the American empire is already in decline, but we might be able to do a graceful decline to become, a standard participant in the world rather than a belligerent superpower that imposes its will upon anyone, not just in its hemisphere, but anywhere it wants. If we continue to push milquetoast, center-right, basically Republicans like Gavin Newsom, we're going to further entrench fascism in the country because people will see Gavin Newsom as just like Joe Biden, as just like Kamala Harris, as just like what they realized Obama was. A lot of promises, nothing being done. Gavin Newsom has already come out against many things like a wealth tax. He's already fumbled several bags in regards to building public housing and helping solve a homelessness crisis of which California suffers probably the most from. So please, don't jump on this pick your sides thing. The only side you need to be standing on is the side with your fellow workers, your fellow families, your fellow working class people, because that's the only line that matters. Anyway, I'll cut it there and stop rambling. Thank you so much for tuning into the Time Card broadcast. I'll be back in a week or so with another video. I will be starting my streaming soon, so if you like this, if you're still around, thank you for watching. Thank you for sticking around. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.